Our coverage begins in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, as there is no time to waste for the tripartite committee on minimum wage. The committee reconvened today to continue the wage negotiations less than 24 hours after the organized labor suspended the strike. In attendance were representatives of the federal government, including the Minister of Finance, Wale Edun, Minister of Budget and National Planning, Atiku Bagudu, Minister of Labor, Nkiruka Onyegujiocha, and representative of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. On the side of organized labor, the President of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Joe Ajaero, and his counterparts in the Trade Union Congress, Festus Osifo, were in attendance. The committee is in a hurry for an acceptable resolution as the window given by labor has 4 days to go. There are speculations that organized labor might have dropped its demand for a new national minimum wage of 494,000 and maybe settling for 100,000 as negotiations continue with the tripartite committee on national minimum wage. This, however, has elicited mixed reactions from a cross-section of Nigerians. To make more sense out of this, I'm joined by my colleague, Bettina Uweli. She has more on this story. Good to have you on the news.
Thank you so much for having me, Felicity.
Okay, you have worked on this story and you've spoken to different categories of people. What stood out for you?
I think the major thing that stood out was the fact that a lot of citizens have trust issues when it comes to citizens and the NLC, citizens and the government, for reasons best known to them. Now, in the past, you would follow that the NLC would have starters on why they are going on strike for certain issues, and then all of a sudden nobody hears about it anymore. So a lot of people on the street feel like it's going to be the same situation, business as usual. So people are just given the benefit of doubt now that, okay, let us see how this will unfold. But my package, I think we should watch the package.
You're able to capture
and
some
then
of that.
We can see what the people are saying.
All right, let's take a look at that package. We'll be right back.
The nationwide strike by organized labor follows the demand for 494,000 naira minimum wage. From the shutdown of the national electrical grid, plunging the nation into total darkness, to disrupted flights across the country over the government's failure to agree on this demand, among others.
If we look at the cost of living, it ought to be, but if we look at what is actually practical in present-day Nigeria, I don't think our government can meet up with that.
As long as it will bring good results, I'm in support of it. But you know one thing with Nigeria Labour Congress, they are not always stable. You know, when they start up something, the next thing is like maybe they settle them with money and that's all.
This strike is the fourth embarked upon by the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress (TUC), two of the country's biggest union federations since President Bola Ahmed Tinubu took office last year. Paused after a 60,000 naira offer from the government, the union insists on resuming the strike if their new request of 100,000 naira or nothing as minimum wage is not met in the next 1 week.
Labour has been very docile, threatening to go on strikes, and then next thing they call it off for some reason. In a long while, I mean, in about 9 years, we've not had Labour really do what they should. So if government doesn't come to the drawing table, you know, they should go back on strike.
What is 100,000 naira? A man of 3 children or 4 children, can 100,000 pay the school fees? It is not. So you can't buy a bag of rice. So it's nothing to compare what Nigeria is talking about now.
Everything is on the high side. Even if they were to say 1 million naira, it still wouldn't be enough. But judging with the state's, the country's economy and everything, if they agree to 100,000, it won't be bad. At least it will be better than that very meager amount they were giving, because that wasn't going to do anything.
With a break in the nationwide strike for 1 week, life has returned in most parts of the country. From the restoration of power to resumption of work activities in government quarters. It remains to be seen how dogged the NLC will stand in the fight for a better living, or whether they will chicken out like in the times past.
All right, Bettina, your report was quite explicit as to the concerns that the people are expressing. We had a bit of a conversation before the news came on, and you said even though they're saying 100,000, there is every possibility that the figure will come down lesser than 100,000.
Absolutely, Felicity. Now, following what the people have said from the questions that were asked on the street, and you hear people saying, oh, you know, the NLC has been docile, you know, for a while. The NLC has done this, they've done that. From 494 overnight, then there are speculations of, you know, dropping down to 100,000. Now that begs the question to say, okay, the 400,000 initially, was it just, let me use our own parlance, initial gra-gra? Because why would you, you know, it's overnight. It's barely 24 hours before, you know, the consideration of 100,000 naira came on board.
Yeah, some would also speculate that there's a possibility that they've always wanted to get to that 100, but they needed to start high to push government.
There's also the possibility of that, but guess what? You and I know that 100,000 is still going to come down. I have a gut feeling about it.
I hope not.
I hope not, because the country is really tough for everybody right now. But the reality of paying 100,000 as minimum wage with our current economy, it looks very slim.
I think we'll continue this argument after the news. Thank you very much, Bettina, for speaking with us.
Me. Thank you.
All right. We will take this conversation now a little further by getting in a guest, a business and economic analyst, that is, Ezu Nwoma. Ezu, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Oh, how are you doing today? Good evening.
Good evening. All right, let's begin with an imagination of the lowest paid worker in Nigeria earning the 100,000 monthly wage that is being speculated. How will this affect the economy generally? Because they're saying we cannot sustain 100,000 wage bill. Is that true even?
Honestly, if you only increase the minimum wage, we cannot. Minimum wage has to be increased through a financial model and simulation. So I think the Nigerian Labour Congress, I wish they had more economics in the system, right? So there's nothing wrong with increasing minimum wage, but if you're going to increase minimum wage, then a lot of things have to be simulated at the same time. I think, for example, government spending has to come down while minimum wage goes up a bit. Right. If you look at the average amount the lawmaker is earning and the average amount his driver that is driving him is earning, you get to understand how far that variance is and how unfair that system is. So why there isn't that same energy? Because once you fight this fight, you can't come back to fight again. So fight everything all at the same time. It's perfect time to solve fiscal policy problems. For the last 1 month, 1 year, we've been talking about tax reforms. We haven't seen any tax reforms yet. Right, every single ministry in the federal government is acting like Zacchaeus. You know, Zacchaeus, the tax collector in the Bible. Everybody. So about the same time, you're increasing so many things at the same time. So truthfully, the 400,000 naira was NLC also being a joke. There's no way 400,000 naira you can pay that, especially when you understand macroeconomics, understand what the spiral effect of wage increase does to everybody else. Because if you increase it, it means that the lowest person in my own company, I've been an entrepreneur in my 20s, it means that the lowest person in my company would earn 400,000. So why would I now not increase my price? So if I increase my price because my cost of production, which a major variable in cost of production is power and, of course, salary. So if you increase that salary, what happens is that you have a spiral effect. It's called like the wage price spiral effect. And on the other end is having a cost push inflation. Those two variables, right? Cost push inflation and spiral wave effect is going to make inflation become higher. We assume that people pay 400K, they walk into the same supermarket they go to and buy stuff and have more money. But once you increase 400K, everything in the supermarket goes up. So we're back to the issues of like the Sierra Leones of this world that was shown last 2 months, where you could buy a plate of food for the equivalent of a Nigerian naira that is crazily off the tangent of their own currency. right? I'm not sure that you can buy within 40,000 leon. That's what they call it, right? So a plate of food will cost you maybe 80,000 leon. So that gives you an idea of what's going to happen when you increase that. So first things first, I think 100,000 looks a little more reasonable, but they have the opportunity to use this avenue for negotiation to negotiate other things. One, subsidy has to happen in other parts of their lives, right? For example, right, what are the things that the average Nigerian spends more money on? Education. Can we subsidize education? You can't on one end, because what do we spend money on? We all have to spend money on black tax. We have parents in the village who we have to send on hospital. So why do old people, for example, not getting free medical care? Why are children not getting free medical care? Maybe you can subsidize that. What is the biggest cost element in most companies? Is diesel cost. So can we subsidize maybe diesel or face?
Yes, you are proposing so much to be accomplished at the same time. It might be tricky to do that. Okay.
All has to be done in simulation at the same time, because these are all variables that increase inflation. Right, so you can do that all at the same time, then face it out in terms of, okay, step one is you increase the minimum wage to 40 to 60, then to 80 to 200. Every time you do that, there's a reduction in certain things. Because don't forget, we're back to subsidy. If you look at the news, you realize that Nigeria is subsidizing petrol again. So it's a lot of simulations and modeling, and that's really what this whole commission is. Fiscal policy is not being adhered to. Monetary policy is the biggest problem I was talking about, but fiscal policy is another problem. And that fiscal policy is a lot of customs. And I hope this sort of makes sense.
I have confused this many Nigerians, but let's see what comes out of the tripartite meeting, and we'll probably come back to you. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
All right then.
In the meantime, striking workers of the Delta State House of Assembly staff under the umbrella of Parliamentary Staff Association of Nigeria have suspended the strike embarked upon last Wednesday, but with a condition. The workers gave leadership of the House 4 days within which to resolve the impasse that led to the strike. The consequences of failing is that the strike will resume without further notice. Recall that the workers had embarked on the strike due to non-implementation of staff consolidated legislative salary structure upon assumption of office by the governor of the oil-rich state.
So we went to discuss with the state government, and His Excellency assured us that within the next 48 hours, approval will be granted for the implementation of the consolidated legislative salary scale for workers of the Delta State House of Assembly. So we decided to summon them to a meeting, inform them of the good news, so as to suspend the strike action they embarked on last week. And as I speak with you, they are very, very happy with the outcome of our interface with the governor, and they have suspended their strike action.
Once you have issues, you must listen to people when they come to you for negotiation. So since we have those assurances, we decided to listen to them. So I hope that at the end of today, we shall have good news to tell our staff.
This may not be the best of times for the former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, as a committee set up by the State House of Assembly has alleged that most loans obtained when he was governor were not used for the purpose for which they were obtained. The committee presented the report of its investigation to the Assembly on Wednesday. Speaker of the Assembly, Yusuf Liman, said a total of 423 billion naira was siphoned by the El-Rufai administration while leaving the state with huge liabilities. The committee therefore recommended the investigation and prosecution of Mr. El-Rufai and some other indicted members of his cabinet by security and anti-corruption agencies. A train traveling from Abuja to Kaduna has derailed at Asha Station, leaving many passengers stranded in the Federal Capital Territory. Recall that on May 26, an Abuja-bound train derailed along the Abuja-Kaduna route, leading to the passengers being stranded in the Jera area of Kaduna State. This marks the second instance in 2 weeks that the train has derailed. Now let's tell you the latest with the Heritage Bank. For customers of the now-defunct bank, there is no cause for alarm over deposited funds. The Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation has assured bank customers that their money is safe. The corporation gave the assurance in the nation's capital, Abuja, while promising that it is ready to commence payment to customers of the liquidated bank. News Center's Joshua Imarai attended the briefing and now joins me on the news. All right, Joshua, though Heritage Bank had been struggling for some time, the final withdrawal of this license by the CBN generated lots of concern among customers. Do you think that the NDIC officials have a proper understanding of the challenge ahead of them?
Well, based on the recent statement and actions of the NDIC, I think they clearly understand the task ahead of them. They have promptly and quickly announced the liquidation process, assured customers of their funds, and they have even outlined the step-by-step process of acquiring back the deposit of these funds. And I think they clearly understand that there are certain concerns that might arise in future, and they have addressed this concern and even addressed some legal implications of the liquidation of the bank. And I think they have a thorough grasp of what is to come in the coming future.
You have a package on this prepared, right? Okay, let's have a look and then we'll come back to you.
Customers of the liquidated Heritage Bank can now breathe a sigh of relief following the recent announcement by the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation. At a press briefing in the nation's capital, Abuja, the corporation announced there is no cause for alarm as it is ready to refund customers their savings within the next 1 week.
Actually, the process is highly intense, and probably that is why during the act contemplated that we should pay within 30 days. But we are going to pay within 1 week, less than 1 week. For BVN, we can actually use it to scan the system and say, okay, you have an account in Bank X. So you really don't need to come because the BVN has only a biometrics to say that you are the one. And if that account is linked to that BVN and another account, we have no doubt that you are the same person. So that's why we say you don't need to go through that hassle to come forward for verification. But for customers who have only account with Heritage, they really need to come forward to tell us that, okay, this is where you are going to pay my insured amount so that you can pay it. That is the essence of that.
The managing director says that insured depositors of the bank will, however, receive top priority.
The most important thing is to make sure that depositors do not lose their money. You understand? So what's within the creditors, they don't lose their money. You understand? That is why we need to now be able to pursue to make sure that we recover and we pay all the claimants, starting with depositors and eventually creditors and even the shareholders if there are surplus.
The managing director also urged the judiciary to expedite the cases related to the bank's liquidation, saying the corporation is ready to resolve all issues causing uncertainties.
Joshua, thank you very much for that report.
It's a pleasure.
All right. At least 50 women have benefited from a free viscovaginal fistula surgery, in Gombe State. This was carried out by the United Nations Fund for Population Activities in collaboration with the Gombe State government, with the support of the Fistula Foundation and the Norwegian government. According to the UNFPA, the intervention is born out of a desire to ensure that women do not suffer ill health during and after pregnancy.
For us in UNFPA, we strongly believe that there's no reason why any woman should die because of pregnancy, pregnancy because of delivery or afterwards. Because most of the causes of death of any woman because of pregnancy.
Henceforth, this place is a center and people can come at any time with this kind of poor health challenge and they'll be attended to free of charge. We receive drugs, we receive consumables, and our surgeons are trained, the nurses are trained. I think everything is set for any woman that has VVF to come and access services free of charge. So it's a relief. This facility is now a center for fistula repair. So it's a place in the state.
Every June 5 is World Environment Day and held annually since 1973. The day raises awareness, mobilizes action, and promotes environmental sustainability. In this report, News Central's correspondent Austin Azu seeks to examine how Nigerians can sustain the environment.
World Environment Day is observed annually on June 5th to raise awareness on climate change effects, including global warming, rising sea level, deforestation, among others. The 2024 theme is Accelerated Land Restoration, Desertification, and Drought Resilience. In Delta State, the day is being marked with planting of trees, an awareness campaign by the Ministry of Environment in collaboration with the Nigeria Institute of Public Relations Delta State Chapter. They walked from the State Secretariat complex through the Okpanam Road, planting trees along the road to sensitize residents of the state on how to preserve the environment. Speaking to newsmen, the State Commissioner for Environment, Ejiro Jamani, and the State Chairman of the NIPRO, Godfrey Osakwe, called on everyone to make positive impacts by embracing sustainable practices in daily lives, conserving resources, and advocating eco-friendly solutions. They encouraged all to take steps like planting trees, reducing waste, or supporting renewable energy as conscious efforts to preserve the environment.
We are telling the public that they should restore the environment. Like when we started with tree planting, and tree planting is very important. When our forefathers handed over the environment to us, it was not like this. It is our activities that has caused us the climate change that we are experiencing. So planting tree is we are trying to restore the environment.
But beyond the World Environment Day, we're also using it to mark our 60th diamond anniversary, which also entails us working for economic transformation and tree planting exercise. The idea is that we cannot live in isolation of the current reality in Nigeria. We can see the adverse effects, the climate change. So we know that every human being must try to insulate our environment by planting trees every now and then.
According to the UN Convention to combat desertification, up to 40% of the planet's land is degraded, directly affecting half of the world's population. The number and duration of droughts has increased by 29% since 2000. Without urgent attention, droughts may affect over 3/4 of the world's population by 2050. In Asaba, for News Central, Austin Azu.
Environmental experts in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, have called for concerted efforts to tackle the challenges of land degradation, desertification, and drought, among others. This was as the Abuja Environmental Protection Board, in collaboration with the Save the Children International, marked the World Environment Day by sensitizing students on the need to care for the planet in order to mitigate the effects of poor environmental practices. Idong Joseph reports.
After the commemoration of the first World Environmental Day in 1973, the 5th of June every year has continued to be a period to draw government and other stakeholders' attention to the growing environmental challenges and the activities that pose threats to human life and the ecosystem. From climate change to the loss of biodiversity, land degradation, desertification, and drought, Nigeria, like many others, continues to face environmental challenges.
Unsustainable agricultural practices, deforestation, and urbanization are accelerating land degradation and desertification. These activities disrupt the delicate balance of our ecosystems, leading to soil erosion, loss of arable land, and reduced water availability. The consequences are there, affecting food security, livelihoods, and the overall resilience of our communities.
With the theme for this year's commemoration, land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience, highlighting the need to collectively protect the earth, experts say this has become a key.
The earth itself is finite. Its resources are finite, meaning that they are exhaustible. This is a call to all of us to use things raw materials with great responsibility.
Let us try to reduce using plastics, reuse or even reduce and stop it if possible. Then the second thing I recommend is let us plant trees in our environment, in our homes.
Issues regarding climate change is not what one person can do. There are several stakeholders, the government, individuals, community leaders, and everyone, including me and you, and the children themselves. There are multiple steps we are expected to take.
To pass on to future generations an environment that is devoid of hazards, it has become increasingly necessary in the light of the current challenges associated with climate change. And for this, climate experts say citizens must adopt behavioral change and shun activities like bush burning, land degradation, and other activities that put the planet under threat. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Many thanks, Idong. Stakeholders in Nigeria have called for an end to all forms of torture and ill treatment of suspects and alleged offenders, especially as a means to extracting confession. This was as they met in Abuja under the umbrella of National Preventive Mechanism, saying that despite international and national laws against torture, law enforcement agencies have continued to engage in the practice, which gives the nation a bad image. Marvelous Obomanu tells us more.
Nigeria has established a National Committee on Torture as a national preventive mechanism for ending torture at the domestic level in accordance with the international conventions and protocols signed. This gathering of stakeholders is one of several engagements to strengthen efforts aimed at preventing and ending torture.
Torture is a grave violation of human rights that has no place in any civilized society. It reflects unimaginable suffering on its victims and undermines the very fabric of humanity and democracy.
We say that that is not the best way to extract confession from anybody that is alleged to have committed any crime. There are so many other ways.
The era of torture is gone in the activities of the Nigerian police force, especially when taking statements from the suspects.
People with disabilities are always in torture because the entire system is not conducive. It's not disability friendly. So as long as it is not disability friendly, then people with disabilities go through a lot of torture.
While the use of torture as a means of getting information or confession from perceived offenders by law enforcement agencies is widespread in the country, this, however, is illegal, according to Section 34 of the nation's Constitution and the Anti-Torture Act of 2017.
When you hear the word torture, what comes to mind mostly is that law enforcement agencies, the military, the police are the ones very much involved in it. But recently it has taken another dimension where civilians are the ones torturing these men in uniform. A clear example is the one that happened in Delta State, happened in Abuja and Umuahia.
When you slap a policeman, tear a policeman, or beat a policeman or somebody in uniform, you're torturing the person. When a husband denies his wife food or beats her up, he's torturing her. When women go to their villages and bring a house help to come and support them in running their homes, and you use razor blade or pepper or hot water, or you stab the baby or such a child, you're torturing the person.
It is expected that this dialogue by stakeholders comprising law enforcement agencies, legal practitioners, and the National Human Rights Commission will put in place mechanisms to ensure compliance of existing laws against torture so that the practice can be eliminated in Nigeria. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Oboman.
Good to know you're still with us. Let's now tell you that South Africa's ruling ANC said Wednesday it had reached out to rivals to form a government of national unity after failing to win an outright majority in last week's general election. The final tally gave President Cyril Ramaphosa's African National Congress 159 members in the 400 seats National Assembly its lowest score in general election. ANC spokeswoman said the party held explorative talks with several others as it attempts to secure enough parliamentary support to form a government and elect a president. Its decision-making body was to meet on Thursday to vet all options, including trying to form a minority. Our business desk has the rest of today's business stories.
Business news in association with Money Master PSB, the easy way to master your money.
Welcome to Business News. First Bank has successfully recovered a loan of 456 billion naira that was extended to Heritage Bank. This recovery is part of a bailout loan arranged during the tenure of former Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Godwin Emefiele. The CBN credited First Bank prior to revoking Heritage Bank's license, preventing a significant impairment charge for First Bank. The actual amount received by First Bank was 456 billion naira, concluding a 7-year wait since First Bank supported Heritage Bank. This recovery is expected to bolster First Bank's cash position and prevent write-offs for the loans in its financial statements. In a related development, the CBN has denied allegations that it plans to revoke the licenses of 3 more banks following its regulatory action against Heritage Bank PLC. And still in Nigeria, the Nigerian government is contemplating an executive order to permit the importation of paddy rice and maize seeds, aiming to mitigate food inflation and enhance crop yield. This proposal is part of the Accelerated Stabilization and Advancement Plan, ASAP, submitted by Finance Minister Wale Edo. The plan encompasses executive orders for inflation reduction, job creation, non-oil export promotion, fiscal management, and tax consolidation. However, this proposed importation contradicts President Tinubu's previous opposition to food imports. The proposed importation could augment rice supply and decrease prices, addressing the current shortage faced by rice millers. And finally, the U.S. Department for Transportation's Office of Aviation Consumer Protection, U.S. DOT, and South African Airways, SAA, have resolved a civil claim from May 2021. The claim was related to delayed refunds for flights cancelled during the COVID-19 pandemic. SAA has agreed to pay a $300,000 penalty to the U.S. Treasury in installments over 540 days. This is in addition to the 2.2 billion rand SAA has already paid for refunds. Despite entering administration in December 2019, SAA stated it took significant steps to process refunds amidst the challenges of business rescue and the pandemic. SAA's Chief Legal Counsel, Koki Mbeki, expressed satisfaction with the settlement and anticipates normalizing relations with U.S. customers. That's our offering on Business News. Many thanks for watching. I am Perpetua Fazam-Repeater. The news continues shortly. Bye for now.
It's another time when I get to give you the latest on what's buzzing in the world of entertainment. And I'm starting off by letting you know that Falz is making a comeback to the music scene after almost 2 years of hiatus. Now, the Nigerian rapper and activist Falz the Bad Guy has excited his fans with news of his incoming EP titled Before the Feast. In a recent chat, Falz spilled the beans on what's in store for his listeners. He's cooking up a masterpiece that's not just music, but a true work of art, showcasing his growth and evolution as an artist. Now, we know that Falz is not just an artist, but he's also a lawyer and an activist known for tackling real-life issues through his songs. Falz is ready to make waves once again in the Nigerian music industry. So get ready for some serious vibes, folks. It's going to be better than ever. And of course, away from the continent, guess who is teaming up again for another blockbuster? Tyler Perry is bringing his magic to Netflix with Straw, and he's got a star-studded lineup including Taraji P. Henson, Sherry Shepherd, and Tayana Taylor. Now, this drama promises to keep you on the edge of your seat as a single mom navigates through unexpected twists and turns. And with names like Glenn Turman, Sinbad Rockman, Dunbar, and Mike Merrill joining the cast, you know it's going to be epic. Perry, of course, has got a knack for storytelling, and we can't wait to see what he has cooked up in this new movie store. And that's why we call it a wrap on entertainment news tonight. We'll go on a break and return with the latest on what's trending. And now in trending stories today, the Kaduna State House of Assembly Committee investigated finances, loans and contracts during Nasir El-Rufai's governorship. They found evidence of fund misuse and unfair contract awards, suggesting that El-Rufai and his team be investigated and prosecuted. They also recommended suspending the State Commissioner of Finance and investigating other officials from that type. Now, this story has generated significant discussions on social media, with many Nigerians sharing their perspective. Let's look at some of those reactions now on the streets of social media. Kels is saying, you can tell me something else, but not money laundering. Seems like they know seems like they don't know who El-Rufai is. Ask Jonathan or Yaradua, or of this man, ask Obasanjo, who is El-Rufai? And for you all believing this, should go and study El-Rufai's techniques when it comes to governorship. Another tweet here is saying, El-Rufai is about to show the world he is clean. A good step in preparation for 2031. You all would have nothing significant to pinch on him. Infrastructurally, he has helped Kaduna. Amy Gold is saying, this is just eye seeing. Nothing will happen here. Every part of Nigeria has been sold to bribery and corruption. El-Rufai always finds his way out. This one is just headlines. Nothing will be done. And then we have another tweet from Donald, just reminding the EFCC, saying, where is Yahaya Bello? Has the 80 billion been swept under the carpet? Let us know if you share with these comments on the streets of social media. You can share your thoughts as well across our social media platforms at News Central TV. That's all today on What's Trending. I'm Jadel Simon.
Many thanks, Jadel. And that's where we wrap things up tonight. But before we go, another look at some of the major stories. Federal government, labor, private sector resume negotiations after strike. Passengers stranded as Abuja-Kaduna train derails. Kaduna Assembly recommends probe for ex-Governor El-Rufai. We also brought you news that South Africa's ruling ANC is seeking a government of national unity. I would really love to hear from you. Please send your eyewitness report to the number showing now on your screen, or you can follow us on social media and just give us a DM. That's at News Central TV. You can watch live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. As always, thank you very much for your kind attention. Have a lovely night.